So that's my bad. I
You're all
labeled the
good.
interview wrong and I got you confused with Gary.
It's
100% my
okay.
fault.
Our entire guild gets us confused together, so
No,
that
no,
doesn't
you
matter.
guys both sound completely different. To be honest, you both sound completely different, and in my opinion, you guys actually have two different driving styles.
No. We're the same exact person. We're literally mirror images of each other, and don't let anybody else tell you different.
I can actually tell when you're driving and when Gary's driving. To be honest with you, believe
Oh
it or
yeah,
not,
I'm actually
believe it or not.
fascinated to know what the difference is.
So, in my honest opinion, I feel like you're a little bit slightly more. You hit more 50-50, whereas oftentimes Gary takes moves that kind of exposes himself. I think you and maybe you guys feel different, but I honestly see this. I feel like you protect your tail a little bit more, so your movements are a little bit more. I don't want to say sophisticated, but a little bit more surgical than Gary's. Whereas
Oh,
oftentimes Gary just fucking sends it, bro. Like he literally just fucking sends it. You don't give a fuck in the world, which is good for me fighting you
I,
guys,
I mean,
where I gotta work.
if you've listened to his comms while he's driving, his comms are literally push it and fuck him. Like it's not that.
Yes, exactly. Like you can tell who's driving Pugs by how you guys move and basically, you know, uh, kind of how you operate for the evening.
He's a great driver. He's a phenomenal driver. But yes, he does. He gets a little pushy. He gets a
He
little
gets
pushy. But
bloodthirsty.
that's
He gets
okay.
bloodthirsty.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Yeah. No, I can appreciate it. He's a good commander. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy.
Yeah.
So this is my second episode. I appreciate you
Mhm.
joining. Let me just load up my file real quick. Give me 1 second.
Of course.
All right. So this is my second episode. Basically what
Mhm.
I'm doing, just for the people out there, is that every week I'm interviewing a different commander. Last week I interviewed Thornton from Strike Force. This
Yep.
week it's DarkCloud from Pugs. Welcome, welcome. Next week it's Bullyfoot from Hate, and the week after it's Follow Me Bags from Jade. And then I have about 4 commanders lined up for the 4 following weeks thereafter. I don't know who will go when, but we have essentially a different commander interview lined up for the next 8 weeks or so. Um, and I figure it's a good way to kind of get to know each of the commanders that play this game that we all love, and also give those commanders an opportunity to talk about their guilds a little bit.
That's
So let me start
awesome.
off by saying welcome and thanks for taking the time.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. When you started commanding, if you've always commanded pugs the entire time, what got you into commanding?
Yeah. So Pugs is a pretty old guild. Pugs has been around for like 6 years, I think. I am very new relative to Guild Wars and Wolverine World and driving. So I've been playing for a little over a year. I started last August, I think. Um, then I picked it up, and I think I started driving 4 months after that, maybe 3 or 4 months. So I just picked it up, started playing. I played it back when the game released, 9 years ago, for like 6 months casually, just with some friends. World v World was always the most interesting, but it was just something that it never stuck with me. Then I decided, other games were kind of going down, and decided to pick it up and just kind of gave it a shot, liked the game mode, kept playing, and so on and so forth. Um, at that time, so Pug has had tons of drivers. Planes has been the most active through the years. He's kind of the one that everybody knows Pugs for. And then only about around the same time, Gary and I both started driving. He probably started driving maybe like 2 months, 3 months before me. So we
Yeah, so
picked it up pretty quickly, and then planes kind
so
of.
both you and Gary actually been commanding for less than 2 years. Is that true?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I think you guys do a pretty good job. You've rallied a pretty sizable force. I think you are probably one of the larger guild forces out there, alongside like us, Flux, Dusk, Strike Force.
Nick.
Yeah, EBG certainly. How can we forget? He plays like an odd time zone though, so like it's hard to really, you know, I find a hard time throwing Nick in there only because he plays at a time zone when no one else plays. So
Hmm.
it's really hard to see him out and about. You know, he usually tags up as mostly NA guilds tag down. But guilds like Air, Bane certainly run large. VIP, Dusk, I
DN,
said. D
yeah.
DN's running around 30 nowadays. I don't think they're running like 40
Uh,
plus, you know.
DN's some
Have they grown?
we've DN's numbers are kind of all over the place. I mean, we fight them. We've as
Xander,
Thorn,
thanks
who's
so much
a
for
friend
that
of
raid,
ours, and we
bro.
talk to
Thank you
him all
so,
the
so
time. He
much.
joined us for raid last night. Um, as you mentioned last week, like DN is we've been perma T4. We've just been stuck here. Dom has been perma T4 for months, for probably like the last like 6 months. Every link we get has just been it is what it is. But DN, when we fought against DN a lot, and sometimes they show up with 50s. Some,
Really?
I mean, I think
Be-
a lot of those are greenies or just people around
All
them.
right.
But I've seen big numbers for sure.
There you go. I mean, honestly, some people don't like it, but I think larger guilds are fine. You know, like there's no such thing, in my honest opinion, that can judge the quality of a community just by their size. So I mean, whether you run 40, 50, 30, 20, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, as long as your group out there has fun together and is effective in whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, the game in general is pretty numbers based, but as long as you have multiple groups can take one big group. One big group can be outnumbered. You can be, I mean, obviously you have testaments like Dead and other strong groups that can easily beat outnumbered fights. There's all these things that you have to take in consideration. Like all that really matters is that you're not so heavily outnumbered. It's like a 2-to-1 ratio, and then you're playing well, and that's more important than anything else.
Yeah, I think my philosophy is, plus or minus 10, you're equitable.
Oh yeah,
Plus
100%.
minus 10, you're equitable. I think above two groups, two comp groups, I think that's where the numbers advantage starts kicking in. Once you have, a two plus group advantage, that's where honestly you're probably losing the fight more due to the number advantage, less so due to your skill disadvantage, so to speak.
I agree completely.
Thanks for the follows, everybody. So I'll interview Gary on his own. So I'll talk less about Gary. I want the community, the GW2 World community, kind of know more about you. So you've been commanding for less than 2 years. You
Hmm.
command pugs. How many days a week do you command?
So at this point, I'm our primary driver. Plains has taken a hiatus. He's focusing on some real life stuff, so he hasn't really been able to drive at all. We do have so Gary drives usually once a week, maybe once every other week. He's had some real life stuff going on here and there, so he doesn't drive as often. So I probably drive 3, 4 times a week. We have a new driver as well who takes a 2 hour slot on Mondays, and then I finish off for the end of that. So I usually will drive probably 3, 4 times a week. And when I drive for my nights, I'm usually going about 5 hours.
So what are pugs? Just so everyone knows, what are pugs raid days and hours?
We raid reset from right now. It's from 7 PST to about 11ish. And once again, and our times are not unlike a lot of other guilds that require like attendance for a 2 hour window or whatever. We just run. I run as long as I want to run. If you want to show up during that time, if you want to come late, if you want to come early, whatever the case might be, we just want to make sure people show up. So we don't have any specific. You have to be here a certain time, required attendance, anything like that. As long as you join us every so often, and as long as you like are playing with us, that's all we care about, and follow our rules and stuff. So resets to about 11 PST, Sundays from 6 to 11 PST, Mondays from 6 to 11, and then Wednesdays for that same time. 6
And
to
these are all PST hours, you're saying?
all of these are PST because that's where
Okay.
I'm out of.
Okay. So it's about 9 to like 1 in the morning EST, basically.
What 2 in the morning? Yeah.
Oh, 2 in the morning. Oh, wow. So you guys raid about 5 hours a night. Holy shit.
Yeah, I'll run, and usually we do take our breaks in between, but once it gets to the later parts of the night, and we've kind of gotten, we've a lot of the regular folks have kind of slipped away. We get a lot of greenies. I'll just fucking drive for hours, just keep
Yeah,
going.
I kind of just I pug man a lot too.
Yeah,
So, what server does Pugs play on? For the people that
we
don't know,
Gom base, get us.
And you want to tell us a little bit about Pugs? What your, how you guys were built, like what your leadership structure is like, etc.
Yeah, so this is all recounting as a reminder. I've only been in the game for a year, so a
Are you
lot
an
of this is.
officer of Pugs? Sorry to
I am
interrupt.
an officer.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, go ahead.
So this is all recounting. So Pugs has been around for a while. I think they started on like Ferguson's Crossing. They floated around. The big servers that they really established on were eBay and then eventually GOM. There's been a bunch of other people, bunch of other names in the past. I don't think any that were notable. PUG started before as mostly like a Havoc group, had most smaller numbers, had maybe 20s, 30s throughout the time. So and it's always been very inviting, casual, have fun. They've done well for the most part, from what I've been told, but nothing like on the same order as a lot of the higher end fight guilds. As time went on, people just kind of left and came and did what they did. Like Gary, for instance, left for like VP and DUI and all these other higher end fight guilds, but then he eventually came back, and that's kind of the process that's been happening. So um, only in the last so both of the we have two leaders for pugs, Pronk and Plains. Both of them are kind of on a hiatus of the game, so they're mostly around. They help on the Discord, they're community members and everything that sort, but they don't actively play the game super regularly
So
right
for all
now.
intents and purposes, sorry to interrupt you. You and Gary are de facto leaders right now.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of the in-game stuff. They're still very involved in Pug's identity and management community stuff, but in terms of playing and managing what goes on in the game, that is very much that.
Okay. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And we have a bunch of other officers, Saval, Odolph, Pucci, that all do very good jobs. Eula is another one of our officers who's been on a maternity leave for a while. So we have a lot of people that have been around, have helped us in the past and help us currently. But for the most part, we just have a kind of an open leadership type thing where those who've been around, those who help out type of thing. But for the most part, right now, based off of time played, it's mostly me
So,
and Gary.
so it'd be fair to say you guys have a pretty strong leadership team, kind of responsibilities divvied up amongst the people that are able to give the time at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a system of who has the time right now, who's available to kind of take the reins. If you
Right.
can't, then we'll be here, and you take your time, come back when it comes. We'll be here, and we'll take control of it for now. And that's kind of the way the Pugs has always been.
And how about for your theory crafting? You know, I asked this to Strike Force, and I think it was an interesting question, so I'm going to ask everybody. How do you guys do your theory crafting for your World v World builds? Do you guys just use the public stuff, or do you guys bring it in-house? What is your kind of basis
So
on that?
we have a phenomenal team of what we call our class advisors. So we probably have about 10, 15 people that we think are exceptional players, our core, our baseline in our guild that we think play really well, have really good thoughts, everything of that sort. That we have a channel for them where they go through. That's where all of our theory crafting goes through. It's the idea that we've always pitched is that no matter what your idea is, you need to prove that it's good. So like one of the things that we're potentially looking at is like, hey, if we have too many scrappers, what do we do with those scrappers? What's the power build that we do? And it's not as simple as like, oh, I think this is the best and I have the numbers. It's I need you to show me proof. I need you to show me logs. I need you to show me evidence. I need you to play on other classes that match up to that so that we can compare how you do on a DH versus how you do on a power scrapper or hollow or whatever. And so we usually take it from that way. A lot of the theory crafting mostly happens. So after raid, we'll sit around for an hour or two and just chit chat, blah blah blah, talk. But then usually once we come up with an idea that we think might have some worth, we push it through and try to test it, iterate it through raid nights, everything of that sort. So we have a really good core team of people that have spent the time and the effort to try to get that process and try to hone in on what we think is effective.
Nice. And how many people a night does Pugs usually run?
I mean, it depends on the night.
I've seen you guys
Right
out
now,
50-50 often, my friend.
so
It seems it's magically somehow whenever I'm out there fighting guys, Pug seems to be 50-50.
the big thing in general with pugs is that we're not a pug mander in a sense that like we don't have people that roll with us. We have a dedicated guild. We usually will get 30s to 50s in terms of just guildies, but we run open tag. Comms required is a new thing that we've done lately, mostly because it is way more effective, as I'm sure you're aware. But
I only do comms pug mending nowadays. Anyways.
Yeah, I that's all I want.
Everyone's welcome to play with me, but the only requirement is play comp and jump on comms. They're very simple requirements nowadays.
That is the same thing for us. We don't even require people necessarily to be on comp until we run out of space in the squad. As soon as we're at a point where like, oh, we're at 50-50, I will drop non-meta for meta classes. But I mean, I mean, if you call that pug manding, then I guess we're pug.
No, it's pug manning. Because I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you're inviting non-guildies in to participate, with your group, your community, that's still
Yeah.
pug manning. Some people seem to kind of get confused pug manning with performance. You can be a
Hmm.
complete pugged group and perform very well.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
not mutually exclusive. So if you welcome new players in, you welcome non-pugs people in, then in my opinion, if you're not 50-50 or 40-40 or whatever it is, pugs, then you're a pug group to an extent. Whether
Yeah.
that's skewed, 75-25, 50-50, I mean, who knows? But at the end of the day, if you're letting gilded people in, it's a pug group.
Then we are a pug group rolling between 30s. We've had nights where we've had 50s and we're like blown away. We probably average around the 30-35 range of
35. Okay.
guildies.
Okay. Well, I mean that's a healthy size guild to be honest. And
For
then
sure.
you load it up to 50. Obviously, it's not
Yeah.
like you don't run closed ever, right? You don't run private raids, do you?
No. No.
Okay. Okay.
We had a very brief moment where we wanted to try to move into the foray of GVGs, and it wasn't on the same mentality. That's the only time, and we did that for like 2 weeks, and then we're just like, nope, back to open tag, back to pug manding type
So
stuff.
for,
So
for for all intents and purposes, every night that Pugs is out, anyone on the server, soon to be the Shard, is welcome to play with you guys.
yep.
Awesome. It's good to know. So let me ask you this: down either now, presently, down in tier 4, or historically. I asked the same question at Thorn. I think it's a good question. I'm going to ask, every commander. Who would you consider as your rival or arch nemesis guild? Who every time you fight, it's like this is the group that is the most fun for you, the most competitive fight. Equitable, whatever metrics you want to use.
There's a couple. I don't know if I want to feed your ego, but you're definitely on that list for sure.
Let's say
We get
besides me. I appreciate that, but let's say besides me.
Flux is obviously a very strong group, large numbers, usually equal size. Before our link right now, they were stuck in T4 with us, and we had
Right.
really solid fights with them. The big difference with Flux is that they are always 50-50, where we are not always at that level.
Mm.
Um, DN always right now is obviously good on that side. Always like fighting DN.
I can't
Nick,
believe DN has pumped it to that high. Because back when we were fighting them, or we were on the server with them, they'd be running like 25, maybe 30 at most. But the fact that you're telling me they're up to like 40, 45, that's pumped pretty heavily.
the other thing about DN as well is DN's also on a fight guild server. They're
Mm.
they're with other groups that often like will sidecar them or play with them or whatever the case might be. So maybe it is 35 DN and 15 Burr, but they are literally locked together. So
Right,
it's
right,
it's
right,
it's a
right.
50 group. Like even if you have different tags on them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes they run in the same group, sometimes they run with two commanders, but I mean, I don't think last night was probably the first time in a while I've seen DN at 30 people. And even then they had 40 total because there was 10 greenies with them.
Yeah, I mean, people seem, and it always like amuses me. I don't know what your thoughts are, but people are like, yeah, our guild squad is only 35. Yeah, but there's a fucking 15-man guild right next to you, bro. Like all in, your numbers are pretty equitable, right? Like, fine, your guild is 35, but you're forgetting about the 15-man guild group right next to you. So when
Anytime
people
somebody
complain
asks
about
me
numbers, it's
numbers,
kind of,
oh yeah, anytime somebody asks me numbers, I always have to take a moment and be like, well, we have this, but and numbers is always something that I'll be very open and upfront about. Besides them, like we've had really good fights and really good content with like SF. I always really enjoy fighting some of the smaller guilds, but I think the ones that really give us those solid like big fights that we always look forward to are those groups like Flux,
yeah,
DN.
yeah. I can see that. I mean, I always have fun, fighting you guys. And the nights that I stream it, I always kind of, and I'm sure it's come around. I always market it like Pugs versus Pugs. It
Mm-hmm.
always puts up a good little, excitement spin on it. Makes it interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And who's your least favorite commander to fight against? Would you say? Who do you fucking hate fighting? Who is
Can I
it that?
also say you?
Besides me.
um,
Who are you like? Fuck this guy. I hate fucking fighting him.
I mean, okay, there's a
Hey,
couple
wait,
people
hold on,
here.
hold on. Why do you hate fighting me? I don't, I don't fight dirty. Like I don't pin
No, you
snipe. I don't, I don't pin snipe. 95% of the time I don't ash jam if there's two groups fighting already. Unless that group has disrespected me. Like I don't think I fight dirty. I think I like to think I always fight fair. No.
100%. You are 100% a fair fighter. There's no BM at all from that side. The one thing that you do is when there's no content, you fucking chase people down. And especially on your server, there's no content. You're like, well, I know you guys have half my numbers, or you're 20 people down, but we have nothing. Like we're literally PPTing. So I will map swap with you, and I get it. Like you have 60 people, 50 people that you need to entertain, and you need to keep sure. Like it's better than nothing. But sometimes, like especially for our groups, especially at the beginning when we were a little more casual, and we haven't fought you guys in a while. I don't think we've been in a pair up for the
It's
last
been
like
2 months. It's
6
been at least 2, 3 months.
I don't think
Yeah.
maybe even but either way, it's been a situation where like back in the day, people were a little you guys were a little more comped, you guys were a little more like competitive, and after a certain I mean, I remember a couple like 6, 8 months ago, you wiped us like 12 times in a row. And not even close. You just one pushed us. And it was a situation where like it's hard for me with like the people in our squad of like, hey, do you guys want to keep doing this? No? Okay, I guess we'll swap maps. We swap maps and you're standing there. I'm like, fuck.
But I'll
Okay.
say
I mean,
so two things. The criticism is a fair one. I agree, but it's not from a perspective of being BM. It's
oh no.
perspective there's nothing else to fight. So,
Oh yeah.
like we're forced to create the content. But number two, I will say this, and I've said this on multiple occasions in the past. PUGS is one of the very few guilds out there that no matter what doesn't get toxic. At least I've seen from either you or Gary when you lose. Number two, you always come back out to keep fighting. Like it doesn't fucking matter. Like that night that you're referring to, I think it's the night that I recall. Like we just fought nonstop on Red Beal. Is that the night you're referring to, or is that a different
Yeah.
night?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
on
beat
Red
you one
Beal,
time.
we fought nonstop. You came back over and over and over and over again. And they weren't all losses from you guys. Like you guys
Yep.
did, take 3 or 4 wins. Yeah, you lost majority, but I give so much respect and credit to your guild for number one keeping it positive, and then number two, like not bitching out because quite frankly, I think one of the negatives in this game is that there's a lot of groups out there that just straight bitch out. Like, and in my opinion, that's not how you improve your force. Like, even if you take losses, who gives a fuck? Because in this game, every single guild, group, community, it doesn't matter, GVG, fight, casual, every single group has lost a fight or two or three or many to every other group. Like, there's not a single undefeated guild, group, or community in this game. So who gives a fuck? You don't lose anything for dying.
100%. And I think the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that I don't know. Maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just the mentality that I have. Is that as a driver, there are things that I can do if I play impeccably, perfectly with the highest level, and I just outplay the opposing driver. We can beat anything. There is no squad. There's nothing it doesn't matter how good my players are, it doesn't matter how good your players are. If I as a driver play perfectly, I can beat the enemy group. Obviously I need my members to play up and it makes it easier on me, but in my head I've told myself that there are things that I can do to beat anything, which is how I motivate myself, because if I walk
That's
back up, no matter how the group fights go, I always think there's a chance that we can win. It does
That's
not matter how the
interesting
fights
because
go.
I think I have like a completely different philosophy. In my opinion, right, how I break it down is that I think like so just saying that a group is a group is a group, right? Assuming it's comped and numbers are equitable. In my opinion, I say that like comp and meta can get you like a 50% win rate, right? Movement and positioning can take you to 75%, and then of the remaining 25, I'd say 15% of that is individual skill, like how good your players are, and I'd give the commander the least amount of credit. Like 10% of that credit to the W or the loss goes to the commander. I guess sometimes the commander makes a really shitty call and then the loss is entirely their fault, but I still feel like you need a good comp as your base. You need numbers to be equitable as your base. You need good movement and positioning, and you still need those players to push their buttons because you can't push it for them. Yeah, you can kind of point them in the right direction, but I actually give credit the credit the least to the commander and most to the team.
I mean, once again, I'll reiterate. I think the percentage breakdown is how most fights go. I agree. That's how the breakdown goes. But in my head, I think there's an unlimited amount of contribution that a driver can do. If a driver literally is perfect, if literally everything that you call out for is an exact counter to what they do, spot. I mean, and that's the difference, is nobody can ever play it that perfectly. There is no like, I mean, it's a task run. There's no absolute perfect frame input type driving, but you can always like push towards that. So yes, I give a lot of credit to the squad, because the squad is going to carry me oftentimes, and I will never be that level of perfect. But in terms of a motivation, at least for myself, I always tell myself that if I do something that just absolutely counters them, that we can break them.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I completely look at the commander as a management role. Like you're
Yeah.
managing groups, you're managing comps, you're managing kind of making sure that people kind of are in the right place. You're managing builds, you're managing the training. I almost, you know, except for when you're in fight, like in a, and even when you're in a fight actually, because you're managing positioning, you're managing movement. Like I look at commander as a completely managerial role. I don't know why, but in my mind, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is just my background and my mentality. I've come from a bunch of competitive games, and I've always played, even in team games. I always try to play that if I can do enough, if I can be strong enough and good enough,
You can beat the other
that
team.
yeah, it doesn't matter what.
Mm.
Nothing else matters. I
Yeah,
can beat the other.
there's no wrong philosophy. There's no wrong,
Yeah.
right or wrong, quite frankly. Like that's why when people are asking, is there, can you teach me to be a better commander, or can you teach me to be like the question I get asked a lot, can you teach me to be a good commander? And I honestly don't see, good commanders or bad commanders. I don't think there's such a thing as being good or bad. I look at it as effective and not effective, right? There's no right way or wrong way to command. It's whether your process, your way that you command is effective or not. And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting statement, because I mean, everybody has different philosophies, and everybody
Different
has
philosophy,
different.
different styles.
Sure, and there's always one of the things that I like to do when we do VOD review for driving is that you sit in a situation, you watch the first 10 seconds of a fight, you pause in the moment, and you just have a round table. What would you do in that moment? What is the next call out you would do? And yes, there are different. It's the same. It's impossible to then take that and be like, oh well, you chose the right one, you chose the wrong one. There's always going to be a certain amount of um like input for a certain things. I'll rephrase what I said. There's never a right one, but there is wrong one. There are very clearly decisions that can be made that are wrong decisions. You'll never be able to definitively say what you should have done, what the absolute best 100% option would have been in a fight in that movement position. But man, there are positions that if you had done something, you would. I mean, everybody died. You literally would have just died.
I, I,
So
I can get behind that. I think that's fair because there's sometimes that, I see it when I'm fighting the group, like the commander just fucks up on the movement and he lost the fight right there. So there is a bit of a burden and responsibility on the commander, but I still think that there are not just one path to success. There are
yeah,
multiple different ways you can achieve success with the group.
for sure. And going back to your question, way, way, way before we digress, way too hard. Any guild that runs and like with big numbers and like actively runs, or any group that then counter whispers and just incessantly makes excuses. It's one thing to be like, hey, we're low numbers and we can't take you, but when groups and enemy commanders just lay on the excuses constantly, there's just a never-ending list as to why this or that didn't happen, or even like, and then it's like anything like that. I just don't like, and I'm not gonna name names. But there are plenty of people out there that just it's never that the enemy group is good. It's always that something came and screwed you up. Something fucked you
You
up.
sure
In
you don't
that
want to name names?
don't want to name names. We are a wholesome place,
Are you
and we are
sure? Well,
here.
I'll give you one more opportunity to name names.
No.
Create some drama.
Pugs is a inclusive community, and we abide by that.
You can whisper them to me. Whisper them to me.
No, if you, the problem is I'm gonna whisper you them, and you're just like, so he said, yeah, no.
I won't. I promise you. I promise you.
We can have this conversation at a later date. We can have this conversation at a later date.
Oh man. I mean, and you know what it is about groups like that, and I'm sure they're nice people. They're good. Like they may be good communities. They may be nice players, nice people, whatever. But I feel like they put a superficial glass ceiling on the performance or improvement of their guild by just making excuses. Like I tell, and I tell my guys all the time, like when we lose a fight, we lost a fight because they're better than us. Like they played better, maybe not overall better, but on that fight that we just lost, they played better. We played like shit. You know, and I say it quite frankly. Like I'll say it, you know, respectfully, of course, but we lost that fight because they played better and we played like shit. There's no other excuse for it, right? Unless there's like 10 plus more players than us. Once it's above two groups, I think at that point it's really really hard. To be quite frank, unless there's a huge skill differential, then I guess it doesn't matter. But if skill being somewhat equitable, I think you know above two groups, it's really hard to overcome.
Even with the numbers difference, we every time we lose, not every time, but a lot of times when we lose, we will regroup for a second and I'll say what happened. Where did we go wrong? What did you guys feel? And we have to have some sort of dialogue. And yes, it is often like they played better than us. They did something better than us. But I always want to try to figure out what it was. Okay, their scourges just spiked harder than us. Their scourges have more pinpointed wells that move better. Their driver just moved better and punished me for a push that I did. They're pushing in their bubbles. Were incredible, and we just didn't have the response. Like it's way easier to pinpoint what we can do and to acknowledge what they had done than it is to be like, oh well, we had free casters behind us, or like there was another group that came in, or even things like, and there's small things like terrain or lag that you're like, okay, yeah, fine, that happened, I get it, we have to work around those things. But terrain, that's my fault. I think a terrain is my fault. Lag, both sides are facing it. They're just as affected by lag as we are. So there's a lot of things that people put a lot of blame on that I don't think are valid, because there's a lot of things that you could have done to avoid them. And I think there's such a lack of accountability. I think that's the biggest problem. There's such a lack of accountability amongst enemy groups, enemy drivers, whatever the case might be, that prevent groups from just acknowledging each other
And lack of respect, to be honest with
100%.
you. A lack of
100%.
respect. Like people are just, and I don't know why. Like I get it. Like I got a competitive edge to me too, and I'm probably just as guilty of it as others, just talking a little smack every now and then. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna get personal with anyone who's toxic or just absolutely disrespect them.
Hey,
Like
smack talks. I'm all for. Whispering, like there's a certain level of disrespect and shit, and like a little bit of shit talk, trash talk. Like there's that fine line. Like I can
I agree.
whisper a commander and I can talk shit about whatever, but it's that really fine line between literally feeling like they are lesser than you and being like, ha, you fucked up, good job. Like yeah.
It's a level of elitism that quite frankly, I think has really destroyed a lot of the competition in this game. Like really made it just so fucking toxic that you just don't. It just gets to a level where I think a lot of players and commanders just get turned off.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's unfortunate because I think this is a game mode, especially with the dwindling World v World population, where if people showed a little bit more respect to one another, it could actually produce more fighting.
I mean, 100%. Like last night, we fought against DN most of the night, and I was whispering Craven most of the night. Just, where do you want to fight? And he's like, hey, I want to fight in different terrains. I don't want to fight in the same exact location every time. Let's mix it up. And we just went to different places and different terrains and just gave it a shot. And that was part of what made it fun, is having that mutual respect and having the ability to communicate to each other and talk about it. And yeah, sometimes like you do little things here and there that you're a little annoyed with another commander, and maybe you're just like, hey, stop fucking AJing me, like, please. But I mean, you have to hope that, especially against groups that you've had good fights with, that there's been wins and losses, that there's a mutual respect not only amongst the drivers but amongst the players, and that's not always the case. And I think that kind of stems back to that community. There are groups out there that look at other groups, and instead of acknowledging that they have any respect toward them, they just BM them and disrespect them the whole time.
Okay.
And as a result, I think the people that run with them naturally just reinforce and reiterate that statement. So even if you don't have anything, you don't know a single person in this other guild, you automatically
Just
associate them
clump
with
them all
losing that
together. Yeah,
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 yeah.
they're all shitters. They're all,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So
I agree with you. You know what I used to do back in the day with Jarvan, and like a couple of the commanders. So we
mhm.
used to play this game basically called loser picks. So when you're on the map, we used to just start the fight wherever, and then whoever loses the fight gets to pick where the next battle is. So oftentimes, you sometimes try to avoid structural. You don't want to fight with the structural buff. But if you're losing a fight, the loser always picks the next location of the fight. And I've always wanted to do that again nowadays. We used to do it way back in like 2016, 2017. Loser picks. We used to do this with a bunch of different guilds, mainly Jarvan, because he used to be down for that. But if you ever want to do that, we're on a map together. It's basically loser picks, and basically the idea behind that is the loser lost the last fight. Let them pick, a location that may be slightly advantageous to them, which is fine. Whether it's closer towards the tower, so they get structural buffs, closer towards their spawn, so they get respawn advantage, whatever it is. But the loser gets to continuously pick, and then say, you win that next fight, then I'm the loser. I get to pick the next location. I can bring the next location of the fight a little bit closer to my side.
That's an awesome idea, and I totally support it. I mean, there's even there's a night that we were fighting, and we had just really low turnouts. We had like 20 people, and we were your only content. And at one point in time, I'm like, I can't fight you.
I
I
remember
have,
that. I remember
and
that.
and you're just like, okay, uh, 4 groups matchup, and then you basically just fought us 20v20s, and we had a couple back and forth, and eventually another group came and they ruined our fun and blah blah blah. But it was a situation that you at least were able to um you're at least able to like make something of it. Like if there is nothing else to do, having a little respect and communication goes a long way to letting both groups at least do something.
Something, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if the commanders can talk to each other with respect, then hopefully the members can too. But it starts at the top in that sense. But like, I have no problem splitting my group in two, long as I can split it in equivalent twos. Like, I would hate, and I would command each group, but I would hate for a large chunk of my players, as I'm sure you would, to be sitting on the sidelines just watching all night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and we've done the same thing. We fought against a group, Aura, and they had like 15 people, and I think we had 30 at the time, maybe 35, and we just cycled through groups. And we basically, I was the only person who played every round, and I just went, okay, these 3 groups, we have all the comped groups, and we went, okay, these groups fight, these groups fight, these groups fight, and just that's all we did. And it's like, I have nothing else to do. There's no other groups to fight. This is at least a fair fight, and we're at least having some. I mean, yes, it's not quite ideal, but and people will have to wait, but it's
All
better
right.
than
Better
PPTing.
than nothing. Yeah, absolutely. So we're around the halfway mark. Let me slightly change the subject. There's a couple other questions I want to get back to, in regards to, your commanding philosophy as well as, PUGS as a guild, because I want to give you an opportunity to talk as much as you want about, your guild as well as yourself as a commander. But slight change of conversation here. What are your thoughts about the direction ANA has taken, with World v World, or stated they're taking with World v World, specifically in regards to alliances, specifically in regards to their rewards that they're trying to bring forward, and then let's start there, and then I'll ask you some follow-ups.
I mean, a big thing about me is not only am I new to driving, I'm new to the game, so I'm not nearly as jaded as a lot of people are. Alliances is a year-old concept to me. It's not a 4-year-old concept like it is to everybody else because, I mean, I started playing the game and I read a forum post about it. I'm like, oh, that seems like a good idea down the road. So I'm still hyped for it. I think people who have the problem with how the beta went and all that things, they obviously have no concept about how programming works, and they have no concept about how servers roll out. And I mean, for the most part, ANET has done a really good job, especially lately, as far as I can tell, in terms of their communication. Obviously, that wasn't the case in the past, but it seems like it seems like they have a really good grasp on what they're doing, even to the point where, I mean, you have multiple ANET people coming into other guilds runs and just running with them, not even as like a celebrity appearance thing. It's like, hey, we want to be here while you guys are running and just get a feel for what these rates are like. And I think that's really cool because I think it gives them at least a good grasp on it. In terms of the shards and alliances, balancing out um server population, especially when servers become so like, I mean, they're chasing one popular guild. It's like the thing that happened with BP a little while ago. One guild move there, and suddenly like, oh, that's the destination, and everybody moves there, and then they did this link up, and everybody leave. They decide, oh, we're gonna leave now, and then suddenly it's like, oh God, like this is terrible. I have to hope that that's gonna be successful. The biggest thing I'm concerned about is how they're gonna be able to balance skills, because like people are naturally not very good at balancing themselves and like policing themselves. People just aren't very good at, oh, we have a strong guild. Um, let's go ahead and get some other like let's only have all the strongest guilds together and just wipe everybody. And then even worse, you have all the weak guilds who are like, hey, we have really good friends with these other guilds, and you end up having this alliance of 500 people that is just extremely soft, extremely casual groups that you note that just get run over by absolutely everybody. And so if they could find a way to balance that, it's gonna be really hard for them to see how big these shards are. And if you could have a really strong shard with a really weak shard, maybe it's no different than a host and a link type situation. I think it's in the right path,
Well,
but
I think
it's gonna be
they've
interesting to see.
they've stated that, with the current link system that they've been doing for the last like 3 4 years now, the deviation between the largest server and the small server is like around or has been up to 50% population deviation, which is fucking massive. But that completely explains why you've had two perma tier 1 servers almost 95% of the time since the system has been introduced, and two perma tier 4 servers. Very rarely has the actual system been balanced. Like it's a fucking shit show, quite frankly. They've stated that with the alliances, yeah, it hadn't really happened, but with their internal testing, the deviation, they got it down to 0.007%. And if that is true and accurate, maybe there'll be some actual balance in the fucking population across all the shards. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, if that is true.
Yeah, I mean, I guess 2 point. I'm interested to know if that 50% was the difference between a host and a link server, or if that was between the largest host and the smallest host.
I think it was the largest combination to the smallest combination.
That's even more baffling. Um, because you'd ideally put the smallest host with the largest link and balance it
Yeah,
that way.
I really don't know how they fucking been doing it. It's pretty fucking it's
I'm not.
fucked actually.
I'm not going to speak on that anymore.
But
Sorry.
going off that, let me ask you, what if you're able to share or want to share, what's Pugs doing for alliances? Have you guys decided?
So, not to keep bringing Gary up, since you'll eventually get him on here, but Gary has a ton of former connections with a lot of people. A lot of the other members of Pugs have a ton of connections. So, um, we have groups with like VP. They reformed and they're getting back together and they're moving forward on that side. So VP is going to be joining
Are
us.
they on GOM already?
No, VP
Okay.
is on IOJ right now.
Okay. So it'd
And
be
then
Pugs and VP.
we have CF with Maynard.
CF. Okay, yep, I know them.
We have Joy
They're on
on.
BG right now, right? Or the link?
No, I think Joy is on.
Is that a different Joy?
Yeah, I think so. They're
Okay,
on the BP. Whoever was linked with BP matchup. I don't remember what exact server they're on. And then we have Lag, Balloon, and then a lot of smaller guilds. Zap.
So, for all intents and purposes, would it be fair to say that you guys have essentially built an NA alliance?
No,
No?
I mean, Lag is OCX. Um, we're getting Wolf Amarok is gonna be for that EU
EU
Pug
time
Commander
zone. Yeah.
side.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah,
I've tried to help Amrock a lot over the last year and a half, trying to get him started. You know what? Like, and this is, yeah, I'm gonna just throw this as criticism, but not negative criticism. The only thing that holds this man back is consistency and buy into the meta. Like, I feel like he tries to reinvent the wheel too much, and it just makes his struggle as being a new pugmander, a new commander, that much hard when you're trying to reinvent the wheel and introduce yourself to the world to get people to follow you. That's the only thing, in my opinion, that holds him back. Otherwise, he has that sincerity and he has that drive, that motivation to be a good commander. He just needs to buy into the system, so to speak.
I mean, it's if it's people don't seem to understand the whole like hive mind, thousands of iterations on the internet thing. Like if so many other people have done it to a success, there's got to be some merit to it. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe there is ways to innovate and push the envelope, but not everything that people are doing is wrong. Every group is doing something. If every group has a firebrand in it, clearly firebrand is not. There's no way you can get around firebrand. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, the other thing is, I think it's easier for someone, like me, who's been doing it forever, to try to fucking just think out of the box and be like, hey, we're gonna try this. You guys are all fucking following me, whether you like it or not, with this new thing that we're gonna try, than it is for someone who's trying to make a name for themselves and on top of it say, no, I want to try something different than what everyone else is doing. It just makes your job that much harder to be a well-known pugmander. But he's been at it for so long, I can't help but wish the man success.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a time zone, whatever the case might be. It'll be nice to have them. The idea that we had is we want to try to get time zones if we can. So we have the EU, we have the OCX. We're trying to get a Seagull. We have a couple that we've talked to, things of
Mm.
that nature. And then we also want to try to split up what type of content is available. So you have us with the big Zerg fights. You have VP with the smaller closed tag, like sweatier fights. You have like Havoc groups. You have like fives, tens, 30s, just to give people a range
Some
of content.
variety. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea. That's a good idea.
because I mean sometimes I do not want to fight with 50 people. I want to do a 20v20 against a really comp group and have that really tight movement and have those types of fights. That's really enjoyable. Sometimes I just want to brain dead and havoc or whatever. Like it's just nice to have that option and that availability. So that's what we're trying to shoot for.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I think if that is the basis for what you're trying to achieve, I think you guys are on the right start. Quite frankly, you got a good foundation down. Now you just got to fill the gaps.
It's the hope.
Nice. So let me ask you this: what tools do you wish commanders had, to improve your ability to command? Is there
Uh,
anything extra you'd like to see from ANET?
yeah, a ton of things actually.
Shoot.
The first thing is just
And
squad
I'll
management.
caveat this with saying that I asked this question on purpose because there are a good handful of devs that have watched the last stream and have stated they're going to watch all the future ones. So I'm going to make it a point to ask all the commanders I interview so that they can hear it firsthand.
For sure. Just in terms of squad management, there needs to be a way to restrict accepting or declining to just your LTs or the commander. There's just in terms of having people join you, and you need to check if they're on comms or people like obviously you can restrict who can send invites, but just hitting that accept or decline, letting people know that you're open. At least as a pug commander, it's really nice to be open with approval, and you see their name, you see that they want to join you, and then you shoot them a whisper, join us on comms, whisper me when you're in. Just being able to let people know, at least as a pugmander, that I am available for you to join us as long as you join comms is really nice. The worst part is that somebody sees, oh, I don't like this box, and they just close it. And it's like, fuck, I'm trying to wait for them to get into comms. Like, please stop pressing the button. Or they just automatically accept it, and I was like, fuck, I have no idea who's in comms in here, and I'm trying to track it through. So just little things like that in terms of management. In terms of driving, I really want I want to be able to place both symbols, markers on the map, as well as area markers. I want to be able to set like say like a 400 range circle and just have this highlighted circle, because right now commanding with markers is really nice for people to be able to see things, but when it gets real hectic and there's lots of fights, it's tough for people to find those markers in between everything. There's just so much going on.
You don't
So
think the circles would get more shit on the ground with the 50 million circles that are already going down?
I mean
You don't think it'd be
potentially,
cluttered as all fuck?
I mean, and then that's the iteration process. Maybe you just have like there is no purple ring. There is no there are rings that are unique enough that you could really establish. Like if you think of it like the I mean, even if you took like the racing bubble, like the golden bubble at the end of a race, and you just cut off the bubble and you just have the very bottom portion of it, that stands out enough from everything else that if you're a commander and you're trying to specifically call for something in an area, it's going to be really easy for people to see it. Anything that just makes it slightly easier, or even just customization, whatever you can do to slightly customize it. Yes, there's so many things going on, but anything that you could potentially do to make it better, and maybe it doesn't make it better. These are things that I know people struggle to find markers, so I
Mm.
want it to be better, but maybe there really isn't a solution. But until I can test that, and maybe they have, maybe that'd be great for me to know, like, oh yeah, we've tested all these things and none of those look good.
I agree with the part of testing things out before you just say no to them. So I'm a huge fan of that. So even if they say, "Hey, we got some commander tools coming that we'd like to introduce in the pipeline. We want to beta test it for a week," have at it and give us your feedback. I'd 100% be behind that. One of the things I would like to see is right now, if you go into the squad, you can see that the number of the subgroup when you're in the raid, when you're in the raid view. But the minute you go into your subgroup view, you lose the number. So if I'm ever like, groups 2, 3, and 4, go do this, people have to click on the thing, go to fucking view as a grid, put that on. Otherwise, they don't get to see what subgroup they're in. So like
Yeah,
right
and
here, if they could just say what subgroup they were in, it would make things a lot fucking nicer.
I would love other things that'd be really nice. So squads are very much have been designed as like a everybody's in a squad type of thing. I would love for you to be able to turn off all people's health bars but your party. I mean, we've gotten to a point in the meta of World v World that your party is like its own little thing.
But you can make the, I don't know if you do or not, but you can make your party's health bar thicker than everybody else's.
I mean, but even that, there's still 50 bars. And
It's true. It's true. But it's
like,
better than nothing, I suppose. But I mean, I guess another option doesn't hurt. That way, you get to decide whether you want to see non-party. I mean, I'm all for it. More options, the better. So you can decide whether you want to see, your party is thicker and everyone else is thinner, or just turn off everyone else's and you only see your party. I think
yeah,
that's
like
that's a
as
great
a
option.
support player, as a firebrand, as a scrapper, just being able to be like, I need to be watching my party, my stab. If somebody gets left behind, I need to watch for that health bar. If I don't see four other health bars on my screen, that means somebody's caught behind. I need to turn around and
All
I need to
right.
cleanse that mob, whatever. That just makes it makes it's a quality of life thing.
Agreed. Agreed.
I would love to be able to change certain parties' health bars. Obviously, that more colors makes it weird, but if I could assign certain groups, blue group, go this way. And maybe that's, parties 2, 3, 4. And they go, kill a mort or whatever. Just being able to assign a couple colors, make it a little easier. That could also help. Just more customization, more like little things that you could do that you could potentially more options available than just a ton of green bars. But
Okay. And let me ask you this, like that's for a commander set. What about wish lists in regards to World v World? Is there anything you'd like to see more out of World v World? I know alliances that are coming, I know better rewards are coming, but is there anything else you'd like to see out of World v World, like content wise, anything really?
like dynamic objectives. The game isn't dynamic enough. You kind of have to make your opponents that way, so it kind of feels like endless. Um, I'm not sure how that would really be implemented. It's really hard to make like a server wide thing or like keep a tally of something or even have like competitions. Like they used to have I guess they had back in 2014 or whatever, they had like server competitions for whatever.
The seasons.
Yeah, and so that would be nice. There'd be a reason to be fighting for something beyond just fun, the fun of it. There's a little bit of motivation here and there. So maybe a little bit of dynamic side on that front. Um, sure, more maps just to change up the terrain, little things here and there. Cleaning up the maps would be nice. There's lots of really
Dead
weird
Space, Dead
yeah,
Space, a lot of Dead Space.
like red is just way too big. Like it's a great map and people bitch about red map all the time, but red has some really cool
You're not
things in
allowed to
it.
say that on my program. That red is a good map. I apologize. We're gonna edit. We're gonna bleep out that entire statement you made.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. There are cool areas in red. The map as a whole is bad though because of how long it takes to go anywhere. I see OJs and I've just spent the last 15 minutes walking across a map, even with mounts. I can't imagine that map without mount. That must have been just abysmal.
It was terrible. It still is terrible in my honest opinion.
But you could take that map and you just shrink it down, 20%, 30%, and it feels good. It feels. I mean, one of the things that makes Guild Wars so great is how dynamic everything feels. You go into a world and you see you see roaming packs, and you see these. I mean, maybe you have like World v World meta events almost.
So
That
my idea from back in the day is like I started the game during the orbs days. Like it was only 3 or 4 months, but it was glory orb days. SMC for all intents and purposes is the sub objective for EBG, right? That's the thing that everyone fights over. They should have a sub objective on every single map. So for Alpine BL, they should figure out a way to bring orbs back. So if you want to go to Alpine BL, you're fighting over orbs. Like, it's basically capture the flag for the three servers. They for the red map. I don't know if you played the game, but back in the day when they had the dinosaur event, it was a buggy event, but the concept was a good event because it basically created action every 2 hours guaranteed from all three blobs, and they fought over the fucking the laser beam from the universe, the ion cannon, and it blew open all the walls and the gates of all the enemy keeps and towers. So that created action every 2 hours. In my opinion, they should do a different sub objective on every single map. Like do bring back orbs for Alpine BL, bring back that a dinosaur esque event that's not buggy on Red BL, and then create a different third map with a different sub objective on it. Like maybe even King of the Hill every hour, right? Whatever it is, then whoever wins that King of the Hill event gets like 500, 600 PPT, whatever the fuck. And then that way, as a guild, every single raid, you can say, hey, tonight let's go play the SMC sub objective. Hey, tonight let's go play capture the flag. Hey, tonight let's go play King of the Hill. Hey, tonight let's go play the dinosaur event equivalent and try to get the ion cannon. Like stuff like that would make the game really dynamic, interesting, and change it up. Because right now, every single fucking map you're playing for, let's fucking siege this or siege that. There's really no sub objective. So while Alpine and Desert look different, there's really no difference.
Anything that draws fights and groups together is always going to be something that I support. I totally would like to see that. So that would be really nice for sure. Because right now it's, I mean, you kind of have to know who's there. You kind of have to know what's going on, and you kind of have to drag. Like you have to find the fights. You have to find the content. You have to go knock on a door and force people to come to you. It'd be nice if there was naturally things that kind of people gravitated towards.
I agree. What about game balance? What's your opinion there?
Pop is too strong. It makes it so that you can't do anything but have. I think pop and stealth mean that you can't really have anything else but a scrapper. As much as you'd want to have a Tempest, as much as you want to you look at all these new specs, and there's really nothing that can replace that. And same with Firebrand. There's nothing that can replace a Firebrand. I've always been in the mindset that it's fine to have. It doesn't even need to be a trinity. It's fine to have set archetypes. You have like a support stab promoter. You have a support cleanser. You have like the boons. You have the DPS, and even more than that, you don't even have to have individual classes that do all those things. If you have like 8 different roles, and maybe a class is like stab and DPS. Maybe a class is cleanse and mobs. Maybe or cleanse and CC. Maybe like being able to have all those things together would be really nice because it would give you more options for how to have for people to be able to play other classes, other specs, and have everything be meta. But right now, like you're so fixed, scrapper, and firebrand per party. If you can
But
get it, you can do it. Then scrap it.
you'd
You
like to
have to
see
have
more class diversity to your groups, essentially.
yeah, I like and I'd love for there to be any other options, especially on the support side. There's plenty of other DPS options, and there's plenty of other things that come here and there, but there are no options on support. There's firebrands, because nothing else provides that level of stab, and then there are scrappers because pop is just way too powerful. So
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, they could easily balance it nowadays because you can measure the metrics. Like for Firebrand, 4 sources of small stab, 2 sources of big stab.
yep,
Just give another class access to the equivalent, and you have a Firebrand-esque replacement. The Firebrand brings, secondary, buffs, heals and cleanses. Maybe the other class brings secondary, whatever the fuck, And then I think the easiest, in my opinion, to balance for is cleansing right now because you can measure cleansing straight across the board and healing. And right now, Scrapper brings super speed and stealth. If they brought the Tempest in line with cleansing, then the Scrapper would bring R's, soft CC, and then the same amount of cleansing healing. We could bring Druid back on the table, measure the cleansing there, and then the Druid would bring emobs and cleansing and heals. The Spellbreaker back on the table. Spellbreaker could bring cleansing and heals, and then the soft CC and the bubble, the strip. So if it would really take just a little bit of tweaking, and they could bring five classes back into the picture in regards to taking that secondary support role.
for sure. Well, and I think the other thing that would be fascinating, and Guild Wars definitely has the capability of doing it, is that like everything you said was there. It was always cleanses and healing, cleanses and healing, cleanses and healing. And sure, that becomes a minstrel's thing, that becomes a support thing. But I mean, cleanses doesn't even have to be a support thing. Why can't you have a DPS that cleanses? Like, why can't you have like why can't you supplement things here and there? You don't. It doesn't even have to be a healer. Why can't you have something else that's like specifically heals and CCs? Why can't you have these other things that break it up? Obviously you can't have heals and
I
DPS.
mean,
That doesn't. But
my honest opinion is that I think being in that Trinity direction is better for game balance. It's easier to balance over Trinity. Like back in the day, I know you don't have too much perspective on it, but back in the day, there was so much broken shit, and there was a lot of fucking class stacking. There was so much class stacking because having just one class over all the others was just too powerful. This is probably, as much as you know may not like it, and a lot of people may not like it. This is probably the most balanced GW2 has ever been. I think I agree with you to an extent that pop kind of pushes away all the other classes, but the game has never been this balanced. Like there's no superior DPS class to bring to the table. Like you can bring a Revenant, you can bring a DH, you can bring even a base card, you can bring a really good Scourge. There's options here. Back in the day, you should just fucking class stack to bring your DPS. And because they tried to make every class kind of a jack of all trades type of thing, but they weren't able to balance it right. So
yeah, I think one thing that I will want to agree. I 100% agree. I think the game is exceptionally balanced. I 100% agree with that. I just think it gets a little stagnant. It's a
I
little
agree with
tight. And
that.
maybe the
It is
Trinity
stagnant.
maybe the Trinity is how it makes it easier, and maybe that is what they have to do in order to make this balancing possible. Because, like you're saying, you can just it's so easy to let things get out of control. Um, but I think just the fact that like if somebody shows up on a thief or a ranger, you're just like, sorry, man. I don't know what to
Yeah,
tell you.
I mean, I agree with that, but that's fucking Ainet's fault more so than anything else, quite frankly.
But I mean, if we're talking about balancing, then if something's Anet's fault, then they can.
It's something they can certainly fix. They can certainly
Yeah.
fix.
So any class diversity, anything that lets people who really want to play Hollow be able to play Hollow, anything that really lets people who want to play, Deadeye be able to contribute in an actual productive way would be awesome. But and maybe that's not even possible. Yes, you can't have literally every spec in every single class be
It won't be
possible.
every spec, but I think every class should have like a small man spec, a small and then a large group support spec, and then a large group DPS spec. If they look at every class like that and build using all the current specializations, build every single fucking class a roaming spec, optimized for roaming because you can't really say there's a roaming spec, but an optimized for roaming spec, and optimized for large group DPS and then large group support, and then every class has the ability to play every almost mode in the World v World scene.
Yeah, I don't know, but like, I mean, this is why we talk about how Guardians are Anet's love child and blah blah blah. But I mean, every Guardian spec is, including base class, has use.
Yeah. I mean, the Guardian has a great roam spec, fucking Condi spec, power DPS spec, and fucking support spec.
And it
Like the
brings
one Guardian has
huge.
fucking every single fucking build out there done.
Yeah, and that's what you want every class to be able to do. You want Scourge to have a real support role. It is obviously in PvP, or at least was.
PVE, I think it is.
Well, no, I mean PvP, like structured PvP, support Scourge a little while ago was. I mean, it was literally like cancer. It was the best class possible. Like you'd have three in matches, and it was so you could have that. It would be really nice to be able to have classes that could do kind of everything, and you'd love for the balancing to be the level, because I think Guardian right now is relatively balanced. Besides Firebrand being the only source of stab, all the classes and all of the different options available are good without being game breaking, and you would love for all 9 classes to be at that same level. But
Agreed.
obviously, I
Agreed.
feel maybe Guardian was it was just a stroke of luck, and maybe it's not actually feasible or possible in the long term.
It's possible if they really wanted to do it. It's possible. So let me ask you this: have you played any of the new classes?
Yeah,
What are your
played
thoughts on the new
actually most.
classes? And I have, after this, I got 4 more questions from you, and then I'll open it up to the Twitch, and then I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we'll start winding down. But what are your thoughts on the new classes?
We have no raid tonight, so I've got nowhere to be. I've purely from a World v World standpoint, while they are cool, I don't think any of them have any use in World v World. Not a
I,
single one, unfortunately.
I agree with you there, but I'm hopeful. So in the past for Hot and Puff, they released broken fucking classes right out of the gates, and it destroyed World v World for a good year, year and a half post expansion, both of
Mhm.
them. Like it was just ridiculous because there was obscene amount of class stacking going on, like obscene amount of class stacking and broken builds, and they literally ruined World v World because they didn't know their head from their ass and they couldn't balance it. I'm hopeful that the approach that they're taking this time is they're going to release these classes with their mechanics in play and then balance upwards rather than try to balance downwards.
I
So
mean, that
long
was
as ANET is taking that approach, I'm fine with them releasing underpowered classes, long as the mechanics of the class work, and then you can balance the numbers upwards once you've released the actual expansion.
I mean, I agree with that. That'd be awesome because that would at least let us continue to play a mode without just letting it be broken. The one thing, I mean, I think one thing that they do is at least they're on the right track, and I'm hoping that's a beta thing. It's a little tough because the beta usually, when I see these beta specs, I think of it as they're just going to adjust numbers. They're not going to be able to like change the skills more integral parts of the skills, but it's like Virtuoso. It'd be awesome to have Chrono have a DPS rate like World v World spec and
DPS spec, yeah,
Virtuoso,
that's what I was hoping Virtuoso would be.
because Chrono would then have, I mean, they have really good roaming potential on a bunch
Yep.
of different options. They have obviously a really good support
Support,
role in
yep.
Chrono, and then it'd have a good DPS role, and
DPS
it'd
role,
really
yep.
help
It ticks off all three boxes.
Revenant. I would love for Vindicator if Vindicator's sides had more small stab. If you could give small stab on that some way somehow, then you could run that with Dwarf, and you could have stab from Road, DR from Ride of the Great Dwarf. You could have some portions like that. Sorry, let me just step away 1 second.
So while he's gone, I want you guys in Twitch verse to fucking think of some questions for our friend here for after I'm done with my list. Go ahead.
So like, sorry, dog walked out of the room, and I was trying to get her back in
No
here.
worries, no worries.
So yeah, like if you could give them the ability to give small stab alongside Dwarf, and you could give those that blue side skills on Legend Stance, like the ability to provide that, you could legitimately have a support Rev build. You could do something that was somewhat similar to a Firebrand, but instead of providing like Aegis and protection, you're providing DR, and you're providing
Heals.
taunts and CCs, and you don't even heals. I don't think there's much heals on that spec. There's a couple little here and there, but that's the thing. Like you could legitimately give that class a real support role just by giving it some access to small stab capabilities. But maybe like a mantra. You give a mantra onto something, so you could give two stacks of stab, and then if it goes through all three, it swaps to the other side, and if you hit your button, you go back to the blue side. That type of thing. Like then you could have a legit support role Revenant. So I think those are probably the two that I would hope pushes the closest to World v World. I don't think the other Harbinger's kind of just the same thing as the Scourge. Like it doesn't feel any different.
Yeah, it's actually like so. I played a few of the classes. None of them are currently World v World viable because the Harbinger, the DPS is just below the Scourge, but it doesn't have any of the strips. Like it's not there. All the classes are not there, but I'm fine with it. I'm hopeful, like I said, that they acknowledge the fact that they're being released a little underpowered and they're gonna bounce upwards rather than try to bounce downwards because their track record to balance downwards is fucking abysmal. And I do not want to play this game with broken World v World for a fucking year and a half till they get their shit together.
I think the only thing that I'm always worried about is I just don't want them to release more greedy just solo DPS. I just don't want more classes in the game that are just weavers.
More thieves, rangers, and weavers.
Not even just weavers. They're great damage. They're good in World v World. You can definitely use them, but they're just a greedy DPS. They provide nothing else. And so when you need to make a comp and you want to be able to kind of round out the edges, you're not going to consider them nearly as much as like a Rev, which gives you boons and gives you like lots of all of these little things while also providing pretty good damage. So like Harbinger. Harbinger has the ability to be a boon bot. It'd be really nice if Harbinger was like good consistent boons through its potions alongside decent damage and strips, and you could oh, I don't need to run a Rev now, maybe I can now run something else to kind of offset that. But I mean, that's the hope, so that once again it goes back to that class diversity. I don't have to run a Revenant because I want the might, fury, swiftness, and all that type of stuff. I don't have to run a Firebrand. that's kind of where I would like it to go.
Well, I agree with you. So let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on open field etiquette, ass jamming, pin sniping,
I mean,
etc.?
people who've run with me, people who fought against me, I don't do those. I avoid anything like that. When it comes to like, I define AJing in a little weird point. AJing is specifically if two groups are at each other, people have died, you've used your cooldowns, and another group comes in, that is AJing. If there's a three-way, if you've postured up and two of the groups have decided while you've postured up for a three-way to engage on each other, third group is allowed to do whatever they want. That's on you.
So
That's your fault for not playing it
when you're
together.
driving pugs, if you see two groups engaged, you wait till the fight is over.
Yes. Or I not only will I try to wait till the fight is over, but I'll often let them regroup.
Okay,
It's not always the
that's good of
case
you.
if we're heavily outnumbered and like a group is like they're bigger than us and they're now at our size. Then I'm maybe like, okay, now I can get a decent fight because you're a little weaker now. Um, but in terms of like pure AJs, nah, not unless I'm in a pissy mood, which is not very often.
Okay. Pretty similar to us as well as Thorn actually.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, what's your general? This kind of I'm gonna bring it back to kind of a little bit where we started and then close it out for at least my questioning. What is it when you go into approach a fight or when you go into approach, leading your guild for the raid? What is your general world philosophy, your command philosophy? Like, what's your thought process? What are you thinking? What are you trying to do?
Everybody should have the ability to get better. Everybody has the capacity to get better. Every fight should have something that you can take away and you can try to improve on. I have a list of things um, that every single raid I try to improve on that one thing on that list. So I literally will look at the list and just be like, okay, what do I need to prove on? What can I do here? What's the next step that I can have? And I want
Is it
people
taped on your bedroom wall?
not sitting on my desk.
Is it taped on your bathroom wall? Is it on your fridge
Be who
attached
you
by a
want to be.
magnet?
No. It's just it's a simple notepad that I write down things down that I find either from watching other drivers or watching VODs or just reviewing or whatever the case might be that I want to try to take away. And I want people from a World World standpoint for every class to be like, hey, I think I'm lacking on this. I think I'm lacking on that. That's how I approach pugs, and that's how I've tried to mold pugs. Anybody's allowed to be in our guild. Anybody can be here. Doesn't matter what your skill level, doesn't matter what your past experience, doesn't matter anything, that as long as you have a good attitude, you're inclusive, you're not toxic, we don't want any of that stuff, but as long as you're willing to try to get better, as long as you have at least put some effort towards trying to learn your class, reaching out to people, we have people here to help you, mentors, training, everything that sort. As long as you try to get better, you don't have to become the world beater. And not everybody can be that level, not everybody can be the absolute best, but everybody has the capacity to get better, even if it's small amounts, and that's all I want.
And going off that, like you were saying, you watch VODs. Like, which guilds or commanders do you watch a lot of? Picking stuff
uh,
up along the way.
this is Do you ask these questions just so I watch your vids because you do a lot of interesting things that I find that I do try to take inspiration off. I do watch a lot of epi stuff just because of their high level play and a lot of how they move and things of that sort. I watch some of the older GVG stuff. I do VOD reviews again. We've fought Striker so often on Dead recently that I try to look at what he does. Any group that beats me, I try to look at what they did and try to see what I can do to improve. Um, there's a driver for a guild. His name is Joyashi. He's a C driver. He used to play on GOM back before, and they transfer a lot. I think they're part of the guild KS now, Kill Secure. I think Joy is an absolutely exceptional driver with a really, really high driving acumen that I take a lot of inspiration off. So when we were able to play with him, I learned a lot from just playing with him. I try to join. I know you pretty much only drive. I try to join every link we do. I try to join every single driver's raids at least once, and just to learn and adapt and see what they do and anything that I might be able to take from to try to get better.
Hmm. No, I mean doing your homework is important, quite frankly. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
reason to reinvent the wheel. So if there's someone out there that you can learn from who's been doing it for a while, I fucking that's what I do, quite
Well,
frankly.
And I don't even think it's necessarily doing it for a while. We have a new driver who's just recently started. I think he's driven like 3 or 4 raids now, and even he does a couple things here and there that I'm like, oh, interesting. I've never even thought of, like, approaching it from that angle, or like moving in that manner. And so just getting any amount of fresh blood and perspective is super super useful. Even if it's not even like, oh, okay, that actually is not a good thing to do, it's at least something that I can now consider and try, and like just be able to cross off the list in my head.
Hmm. Okay. Then let me ask you this. One final question for me before I open it up. If anyone, is interested in joining PUGS, wants to join the guild, is interested in learning more about the guild, how can they do so?
I mean, they can reach out to any of our officers. There's a bunch of people around. You can reach out to me directly. That's totally available. I'm trying to figure
Are
out.
you in Twitch? Can you type out some of the account names in Twitch, or can someone in your guild type out some of the account names in Twitch for everybody?
Can any of the great other people that are in our Twitch chat type out my account name, both Discord and whatchamacallit, Guild Wars? That'd be awesome. I think of, like, yeah, Saval is one of our officers, so he'll definitely be able to set up. We have a couple of other officers sitting in that chat. If anybody ever wants to reach out, we're more than happy to
And are
take
there
any.
any requirements for these people to join? Do they got to do anything?
They gotta be in GOM. Well, I don't even know if they have Beyond GOM anymore. That's what the beta is. But for now, be in GOM, and no, like, just be willing to play a meta class. Be willing to accept criticism, feedback. We will never call people out and criticize them directly. It's very much like a how can you improve type of situation. So as long as people are willing to take that feedback and try to iterate and improve, that's all we want. Um, the other thing about it as well is reach out to Gary. I mean, he has a stream. It's really easy to find his Twitch stream. He streams almost every time he runs, so it's really easy to track him. So I don't necessarily want to post his Twitch chat in yours, unless we
No, go
can.
for it. I don't care. Go for
Yeah,
it.
somebody doesn't mind posting Gary's Twitch. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, more promotion of World World the better, and I think it's great to have. In my opinion, like people like to keep things secret or keep things like hush hush. I think transparency is a good thing, and having more groups out that are competitive is better than less.
I agree.
Always, you
I
know.
agree.
You shouldn't have when you have one-sided fights, it gets boring. The other side gets completely discouraged, and you get fucking bored. Allowing groups to get better with transparency is a good thing.
Yeah, and I've even at this point in time, like, even like other groups, I always want them just whisper me. Like, I'm obviously it's easy to find the driver; they're in front of everybody else. Uh, just whisper me, DM me in the game, say like, "Hey, we're outnumbered," or "Hey, we're just not that good," and figure out a way that we can try to help make these actual fights. If there's other stuff to do, then I'll just reply, "Sorry, we have others, like, we're gonna go fight this other group." But if there's nothing else to do, which sometimes there just isn't, yeah, I'll do whatever I can to make actual content. I'll do whatever I can to make this maybe bearable. So just be open and willing to whisper, and it's just nice to have people want to play.
All right. Any questions from Twitch? We're dark here. Anyone got anything?
I also want to say real fast, it's funny that you call me Dark, because obviously, I mean, you don't run with us, you don't know. But I've gone by Dark the entire time I've played any other games. Guild Wars is the first game in quite a while that people call me Cloud.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
So listen, if you're in Pugs, get your shit together and call the man by the proper name. Fuck. I got
yeah.
you. I got you. See, there's a purpose for you coming on the fucking show.
Yeah, as if
From this day forward, anyone in Pugs calls him Cloud. Shit and hell to pay.
if anything, you saying that now means they're just gonna double down more. It also doesn't help that one of our officers paid for me to get a name change and, like, asked me to have a name change, so I don't even have Darkness in my Mesmer's name anymore.
Oh no.
Yeah, I've lost my identity, man. I'm a shell of who I've
Oh
formerly
my
was.
gosh. It's a damn shame. So no questions, huh? And I think we covered a lot. Oh,
No, I
question for both Indo and Cloud. What a small guild needs to work well with a huge group like... What a small guild needs to work well with a huge group like you guys. I'll let you answer that question first.
I mean, in terms of sidecarring, sidecarring I mean, it's an art in and of itself, separate from Zerg. I think if you watch groups like Girl and like Burr, they do a really good job. The biggest thing that a sidecar guild can do is divert attention. It's really, really good if you can somehow find ways to bait things, somehow find ways to just draw their attention from the main group. Sometimes that's initiating fights, just running in there and initiating a fight, blowing their wells, and then having the Zerg be able to follow up on that. Other times it's hitting them while they're focused on the main group and suddenly having people scramble to try to turn around. Playing off the other group is really important. Part of that is just whisper the main group, whisper the other group, and find ways that you guys can work together. Maybe that's a plan where ask the other group, hey, what do you need us to do? And or say or pitch something. Hey, I'm going to divert their attention. We're gonna try to rush in another 30 seconds. Be specific. Don't just be like, we're gonna play aggressive, because that doesn't, I don't know what that means. I don't know how that helps me. But if you're being like, hey, we're gonna stealth bomb in about a minute, or watch for us to move in, that at least gives me something that I know is gonna happen. That gives me information, because if I'm reacting to you, that's no better than them reacting to you. We're both trying to scramble to figure out what you just did. But if you give me the heads up, that helps me a lot. So communicating to me about what you're doing helps me immensely when it comes to working off a sidecar. And there are groups that are so effective at it that literally changed the entire fight by 10 people just being able to really divert your attention and really throw big groups off balance. Even if they're not killing anybody, even if they're not generating, I mean, they might be generating a couple downs, but even if they're not securing deaths, they're still, baiting 5 wall spikes, baiting a 1200, baiting a veil, whatever the case might be. Anything that removes cooldowns and whittles them down pulls resources for them. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just going off that, my answer to the question is number one, communication is critical. One second. Communication is critical. You have to communicate with the other team. Back in the day, it was easy to do with CComs because you could join the same TeamSpeak server and just talk to one another through the back channels. Nowadays, it's a little bit of an extra step because you have to send tells. But that being said, there's in my opinion, there's a couple different types of sidecars. There's sidecars that kind of take care of themselves, that they know what they're able to do and not do. I don't need to fucking ever hold their hand. Um, and that can vary from a guild like IE who kind of just does their own shit. I don't ever have to worry about it. They'll ask, hey, you want us to do anything specific? I'll be like, nah, fucking do your thing. And I'll take like 40, 45 of the map. They'll take the remaining 15 spots and they'll just fucking, do work. Whether that means go, harass at the spawn, go fucking back cap and fight the small mans, go back to defend against the small man, like whatever the fuck. And then there's other smaller groups where, they need to fight alongside me, and those groups I need to communicate with, and I can break those groups that fight alongside me a little bit more, where I need to hold their hand a little bit more, where I tell them, hey, fight a little bit closer towards me, so you don't get one pushed, or let me take the bigger hit, you can just finish the downs or something like that. Like, I try not to be disrespectful about it. At the end of the day, you're on the same team. But I do think it's important as the larger group on the force to be able to realize what the smaller group is capable of and not capable of. Like, there are groups like Burr, like you said, that just fucking take some nasty stealth bombs, and you don't need to hold their hand. They know what the fuck to do, right? So I don't need to babysit so much, but a lot of it has to do with coordination. Like, whoever it is, just talk to them, and kind of, if you're sharing a map with someone, whether you're the bigger group or the small group, don't be afraid to work with anybody. There's no such thing as pride here. And I think that's a lot of it. There's so much pride, like, why should I have to work with that person? Or, have that person send me a tell or whatever. Like, I'm probably one of the most veteran commanders in the game here, but I'll still fucking send a tell to the other commander I'm on the map with. It's just a question of teamwork. It's not a question of pride or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that certainly is the case for more veteran groups, but if you're just getting into it and you're just learning about it and you're trying to figure out what you can possibly do, then yeah, communication is everything. I saw there was one question, and I would love your answer about how to. You haven't fought Nick very much, like you said.
I fought Nick. I don't stay up as late, but I fought Nick a lot in the past. Like, a lot in the past. Back during COVID days, I used to fight Nick a fucking ton.
So you saw Nick. You know Nick's strategies. They do the triple mesmer stealth portal, and they
Yeah, yeah,
push.
yeah.
So what has been you? What have you found to be the most successful way to fight that?
I've never actually had a problem with what he does. Like usually he does it like the first 3, 4, 5 engagements, and like much love and respect to Nick, but I don't think I've ever died to his portal bomb. So he usually just swaps it up and then he just fights straight up. I mean, given we haven't fought in about 6, 7 months now, but I don't think I've ever died to a successful Nick portal bomb.
And the
Maybe
big
one,
reason,
maybe once.
yeah. And for all of the rest of the Pugs members and watching this, the reason for that is that their group responds timely and they move tight together and they have numbers that match. And when you do not have those things, it's going to be really tough for you to be able to break that. But there are things that we can do. We know how to beat it. Do what Lindo does. Move tight, bomb together, spike their portal.
I
Like
mean,
I mean that
to be honest, like as long as in my honest opinion, the portal bomb shit is a one trick pony. Like, yeah, you might die to it once, but after that, you should be able to fucking adjust for a portal bomb, and a lot of that is basically putting out the players keeping an eye out for the fucking mesmers. Like, you should be able to identify which mesmers are dropping the portal bomb. You should be able to identify when their portal goes down. And if you don't think you're in a position to offset, and keep an eye, or that landscape disadvantage is there, then fucking move away. The portal has a fucking distance. You use your minimap. So assuming they drop a portal, like I'm picking my minimap right now for the Twitch. Assuming they drop their portal there, the max distance for their portal is middle of the map. If you look at your minimap, anywhere from either corner or either edge, the max distance for the portal is the half the map. Zoomed in, it's half the map. So go fucking like 200 meters outside of the max portal, and then they can't portal bomb on top of you or behind you, right? Force them to engage on you. And if Nick is fighting one trick pony, which oftentimes he does against other groups because they allow him to do it, just fight outside of the portal bomb range. So say Nick is at fucking, my ping right there, just stand fucking off, just slightly offset center. And then the max portal distance is in front of you, always.
I guess on that note, when he for those portal groups, do you push the portal, spike the portal, or do you just bait it and let them get through and then fight, square up and fight?
I mean, I like to collect my bags all at once. So if a group is gonna portal bomb me, I'll fucking let them portal bomb all day. What I will do is I have a mesmer crew which watches for them. So I actually have 3 mesmers in my mesmer crew. I send one out who's running a little bit of a roam spec, so he can watch for their portal down. I have one mesmer in the middle, and then I have one mesmer closer towards me, and I'm prepared for their portal bomb. But I'll absolutely let him fucking portal bomb me, 100 fucking percent. Like, send the bags in a big clump, my friend. Like, please. It makes it easier for me when he tries to portal bomb, especially because he drives on a Mirage. Like, as the commander there, I think he puts his group at a huge disadvantage by driving on Mirage. He doesn't have the CC engage on his fingertips as the commander. He's reliant on everybody else in his group. If he drove on Chrono, I think he'd have a lot more success on the portal bombs than he does on Mirage. 100%. But he's a little bit like he's a nice fucking dude, but he's a little bit stubborn in his ways. Like he loved the days when Mirage had double fucking double dodge, and I agree with him. Back then Mirage was quite frankly a good alternative to Chrono. No ifs, ands, or buts, but nowadays you're trying to single dodge play in World v World. Punish the fucking commander, bro. Punish the fucking commander.
I agree. Anything else?
I mean, have you guys struggled with his portal bombs?
I mean, part of it is numbers. So he comes on. There's about 60 of them. We
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
will,
he runs heavy. He runs heavy.
we square up around that time. We're sitting around the 40-ish range, and we've had literal fights where like yeah, we killed 20, 30 people, and we're like, oh my god, there's another 30 people I got to try to kill, and we
Don't
have
let him
no.
portal bomb you. At that point, like if
Oh,
you're that much of a disadvantage, don't fucking play the portal bomb game.
we don't, but that's the problem. Is like even if we, I've literally pinged his portal locations. We pull back and we regroup, but we're still 20 people down. and they just have Nick plays in such a way with their numbers where they just he's very much a one push type of player. He will use his numbers and he will
Yeah, yeah, brute force. He'll brute force.
a
That hasn't
hundred
changed.
yeah,
He's
and
historically been a brute force player.
that's where it struggles for us is that we just don't have when we're at a numbers disadvantage. We don't have the raw player skill to really overcome that because it's if you can play off of a commander moving around and like weaving and you can kind of punish those directional movements, then I can at least do something. But when he's just like, oh, I have 60 people, I hold the W key even through. I mean, they'll literally just roll through bombs. They'll literally just roll through wells, and sure, they lose 20, 30 people off their spikes, but they still have more people. It's very at that point the fights feel a lot like number games. It's like, okay, well, we'll give it another shot. And then people get discouraged. It's late at night. They're also a little tired. They just have been raiding for 4 hours because of me.
Are
And
you
it's
are
like,
you
okay.
usually running comp?
Oh yeah, this is full Discord required. But once again, it's tough. We don't have that same. That's the other thing is we are very inclusive. It's there. It's and it's hard to keep people from getting too discouraged. And his play style, similar to some other drivers, similar almost kind of to yours, is that it feels like the fights can be so just steamrolling, so one sided. You find your advantage and you just push your advantage, and there's no like, oh, we're in it. It's very much like, oh no, we literally just lost absolutely everybody. He turned the
Mm.
corner and just walked through us and just
So
steamed. And
would you say that the fights you lose against him are portal bomb fights or fights where you're actually just moving around and still losing?
I mean both. Definitely both. The portals. I mean, he has good scouts. He has good people that are out there really trying to figure out where exactly they are, and they are constantly looking for those opportunities. And we do. We just don't have. We're not quite as dedicated at finding at them. So we definitely have struggled with finding where his portals are coming, and it catches us off the first time, and then we're usually pretty good after that at not getting directly portal bombed, but it's still one of those things where it's just like, oh my god, I'm just spending the entire time running. I never feel like I can get the initiation that yields into it. Because even if I get a really good spike, even if I get like I said, we kill 20 people, and it's still now a 40 for 40 where I have no well cooldowns, and that's
Right.
always the tough part. But we'll
Interesting.
get better. We'll keep practicing. Our members will get better. We've had fights where we've absolutely. This isn't like we've always lost to him. Don't like this is when the nights are rough. We've had nights where we've beaten every group. We beat Dead and Ice Up equal numbers last week.
Nice.
So we have our group and our players have the capacity to beat any group out there. I do not care who it is, but there's definitely groups that we just struggle a little more than others on for whatever reason.
I agree with that. The philosophy. I think every group is beatable every day. Like you
Yep.
can't. That's why I tell my guys like don't cry about the losses yesterday and don't circle jerk the wins. Like what happened yesterday doesn't matter. It doesn't mean dick today. Like you gotta fight every day like it's a new day. You can't rest on your W's yesterday and expect the W's yesterday to produce a win today. Like you have to play strong every single fucking day. You have to play every fight like it can be lost and respect every single opponent. Like practice how you play. So if you respect every single person like they can beat you, then I think that's good behavior.
That's one thing that we've struggled with for sure in Pugs is consistency. We've struggled to turn one good raid into the second good raid into the third good raid. It's always a situation where like we have a really good raid and the next time it's like I feel like we're like half the squad we were yesterday. And I think maybe it's that people get a little complacent. People feel like, oh yeah, we're amazing now. And it's just you gotta approach every fight as if it's a fight that they're gonna kill you. It doesn't matter who we're against. Gotta uh, gotta approach every you square up against, once again, not gonna name names, you square up against a 50 that's gonna get uh paper shredded, and you're like, that's 50 dead members, and we're gonna fucking play it like that. So
Yeah. Any other questions before we close out the chat? Anyone have anything else? Is this commander school? Because I feel like I'm in class. Nah, it's just exchanging of philosophies.
If
Getting your
anybody's
people
better,
to recognize where next move is key, no extended nonce just being here off center is huge. Yeah, honestly, I think like if you're like if you're having problems with the portal bomb, the easiest way to offset a group that just does portal bomb is just play just outside, because the oftentimes like you don't need to be so huge off. So like if he's standing here, I'll put the mark down right. So if Nick at Night is standing like right there, right, I'd stand just slightly off center, or just slightly here, and then he can only portal up to star. So he's forced to, if he's gonna portal, to portal up to here.
yeah.
And if he's already dropped his portals, unless he's chained and doing mobile portals, which I doubt he has, but if he has, then you'll have to watch for it, because typically he always did stationary portals. But if he started doing more mobile portals, then you got to have your scouts watch for, you know, the icon on his mesmers or when they go invis, and then just maintain the range, right? And then you got to just offset the stealth off the mesmers, and
I
then
think the
make your
scout,
window once he's dropped lost his window either in the portal window or the stealth window. Fucking push his ass, engage on him.
yeah, I think the scouts just having more dedicated people calling for those timings, and I think like finding the mesmers, mark the mesmers when the mesmers marks are on the map, they're portaling is a really easy way to try to key in on the timing. And I think that's why we've been losing more than anything is timing. We're just slightly off time. So
Here's another question: how would you beat getting covered by bubbles? That's a tough W to pull out. So if you've watched any of my streams or watched my groups, I very rarely run fucking bubbles. Very rarely run bubbles, and that's just because I found good warriors hard to come by. Like oftentimes the bubble play is just so horrendous. I'm just like, you know what? Let me just load up on more DPS. So anyone that's watched any of my streams, you'll see maybe one or two spellbreakers on my side versus 6 or 7 on their side. And you know, it's really easy to snowball when you have 6, 7 plus fucking, you know, spellbreakers versus 2. You have to be a lot more conservative with your 2 to make sure your 2 are fucking golden, and you have to try to you know, off play, you know, the 6 or 7. And the way you do that, the way I do it anyways, there may be other ways to do it, but the way I do it is to just bait out a couple. Like I'll go head on against 4 bubbles. When you got 6, 7, 8 bubbles, sometimes it's hard for some gameplay there. Like you when they just fucking carpet bomb the fucking board with bubbles, there's nowhere to fucking go, right? So you gotta really, you know, manage your positioning extremely fucking tight to offset that many bubbles. Like you can go toe on 2v4, I think. Go on, you can't go toe on 2v8. It's just I haven't found a way to do it.
So the way that we've found for bubbles, so obviously bubbles are a melee thing and they have to commit to that. The ways that we've had the most success is just having patience. You can if they have 10 bubbles, they don't have a good range spike. They don't have a really strong range game, and you can play a very patient game. If they're trying to commit to those bubbles, if they're just forcing the issue, you should be able to punish them from just, you know, straight one pushing. If they're just chucking out bubbles, um, people should be able your driver should be able to position you in a way in which they never could really quite push like that. And you can also counter bubble. You can bubble spike them. They're just like, obviously bubbles are strong, but you should be able to throw a bubble back in their face as they're trying to pull that, and you should be able to generate downs just as they're generating your downs. Obviously it's tough when there's just so many of them, but just having like, if they have to commit like that, they're playing at a disadvantage because often they're forcing their movement instead of reacting to yours. And when they force their movements, punish that force. That's how I've always felt.
What does DarkCloud feel would be the best broken World v World team comp? I mean, the one that we run. Like it's meta for a reason.
Yeah, I mean it's
To be honest with you.
yeah, Firebrand Scrapper, some amount of strips, some amount of damage, and then a fifth whatever. More damage, more strips, more utility, whatever. Bubbles, Chronos, something along those lines. It's nothing too unique. It's nothing too special.
I mean, the current meta. The beautiful thing about the current meta is, number one, pretty much all the classes are easy to play nowadays. You know, easy to pick up, maybe hard to master if you want to say that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also effective. Like there's nothing fancy anywhere in the current meta. You know, back in the day, there was a little bit of fanciness and coordination required. Not so much now, and I don't think that's a bad thing because, you know, if you master the class, you're playing extremely well. Like, you know, it shows. But it's easy enough to pick up for a newer player, inexperienced player, to be part of the team and, you know, jump right into it and get some level of success.
The floors on most classes are pretty low, which is awesome. And the fact that the ceiling can be so high for certain classes, like I think like Firebrand's ceiling is crazy high. To really master that class and to be like incredible at it is takes a lot. So at least it lets people play and contribute and get better, which is all you could ever hope for.
What are your thoughts about Berserker DPS? Because I low-key think it's a W key stopper. So there, Bane. If any of you guys have played against Bane, Bane, in my honest opinion, has one of the nastiest fucking home bombs, you know, out there. They've deviated a little bit away from that in recent. I don't know why they did, but at least, you know, and I think they're trying to get back into it from what I've seen fighting them. But back, like, say, even 2.5, 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, Bane used to have a nasty fucking home bomb. Like, they used to run 6, 7, 8 fucking Zerkers. Like, it was disgusting. Like, even I, with my group, I would try to play outside of their Zerker range because it fucking hurts. Like, it fucking hurts with that much Zerker action. But Zerker is one of those classes, like Glax Zerker does a lot of fucking damage, but it's easy to just fall over on. Like a fucking, you know, a gust of wind comes at your direction and the Zerk warriors are dead. So you need a good contingent of Zerker warriors to play that type of build. And Bane used to have it. I don't know why they moved away from their strength because I think they were a lot more successful back in the day when they did a Zerk warrior comp. Like they had a shit for a range bomb. Their range spike was absolute garbage. But you got with it, let them get fucking close to you, they'd fuck you up. They'd fuck you up.
See, I think that's one thing that I want us as our guild to get better on is being able to adapt. Groups do different things, and being able to be like, okay, to pinpoint what we need, and being able to have people swap to those things and play certain things that work better for those comps and like adapt to that was something I really like. If we have a group like that's million Zerkers, we'll just load up on revs and DHs and just range spike you to death and chronos and just we'll just rip you apart that way. I never need to commit. I will rip your squad apart. If they're one pushing us, if they're trying to be hyper aggressive, it'd be awesome to be able to get, you know, more scourges and more berserkers and just, you know, wall bomb on feet and cripple people that way. So
I mean,
having
the
that,
the problem is with the queues, right? It doesn't always allow people to swap classes. That's the only biggest caveat on that. But yeah,
I
I agree with you.
well, and that's the nice part is if you know, if there's a little more balancing, then you could have people potentially swap within class. And sure, maybe that's that. If you're in map and you log out, you're still in map for another minute or two. Like maybe
I
that gives
agree.
people
I think that would put that on my wish list too.
for sure. That'd be
Like if you either go linked it or you log out, you have a grace period, like even say like a 90-second grace period.
yeah.
I'll take it. Or alternatively, make every class have a support spec, a DPS spec, and a roam spec, and then you can just switch it up within the fucking, you know, the groups you currently have. I mean, at the end of the day, you have, you know, equipment templates and build templates. I'm not sure why ANET is so adverse to creating a diversity to builds.
Nothing's worse than being a commander in a squad with 40 people and DCing, and then being like, "Sorry guys, there's a fucking 40 queue. I can't get in." And then the other driver in the squad's like, "I'm on a, you know, I'm on a scrapper. I'm not driving on a scrapper. I'm sorry." So it's definitely situations where it'd be nice to have a little more queue flexibility for that purpose.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, y'all? This one went a lot longer than the one with fucking Thorn. Thorn and I talked for about. I mean, he had a guild raid though. To be honest, to
Yeah.
be fair, Thorns and I we talked for about almost an hour, about an hour. This one's about an hour and 40 now. I think it's great, to be honest with you. Um, but any other questions on the Twitch? Otherwise, we'll end it here.
Yeah, anybody who's been in my raids or is stuck after our raids knows that I don't shut up, so it makes sense.
No, it's good. I offered it to Thorn. I'll offer it to you. Into the future, depending on the commander who I'm going to interview. Maybe if, you're welcome to come on as a guest speaker. You know, maybe when I interview Gary, you can come on in with him.
Whoa, so you're just gonna reinvite me to another interview?
You'll be the guest host, a
Wait, but
co-host.
I'm Gary. Indo, come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to do that if you have find an opportunity where that works out. I'm
Yeah, I
happy to
offered
do.
it Thorn. I'll figure it out. Like I got a long list of commanders on my friends list, and I got a long. There's actually, there's a bunch of commanders that have reached out to me since Thorns who have stated they if I'm be willing to invite them, whether it's a small guild, a large guild. I'm not just inviting Zerg guilds, just FYI or known commanders. I'm gonna be interviewing everybody that it commands. Period. Um, so it's not gonna be just big guilds that I'm interviewing. It's not going to be just large guilds. There'll be roaming guilds. There'll be whatever PPT guilds.
Once
I'd
I
like to
pull
get
the
a good mix of commanders in here to get a good mix of perspective. Quite frankly, because we all play the same game mode, but everyone plays for a different reason. So some days it'll be a different type of commander. Absolutely.
When are you getting X Pandas in here?
Does he even play the game still?
Does it? I thought he still. I thought he was
I
doing.
don't think he plays the game anymore.
He quit again.
I think so.
Bummer.
All right, couple more questions, and these will be the last two. Let's see. What build do Pugs run for Warriors and Scourges? I mean, you guys could ask them that. I don't know if they want to.
DM.
Let's say someone has about an hour to play and is mediocre at the game. Is there any advice you could provide that would help the player get better at the game? Yes. Join the Pug Manager that is on comms no matter what map he or she may be on. Joining a commed group will always allow you to improve at the game at a much higher rate than a text group. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Join a comm group. If you're able to join an organized comm group, even better, but at least join a comm group. It doesn't matter who. It really doesn't matter who.
Yeah, and I mean, people might be mean about it, but ask a question. Like, people, like in squad, just shoot a question. Like, hey, like, what build are you using? Hey, just maybe somebody will whisper you and find somebody to talk to. Get some wisdom from other people. Just play, and join a group and try to glean whatever you can off of it.
Why Pug so OP? Oh.
Uh.
Expand. Why don't you love Rangers? That's not a real question. Okay, so let's call it there. Well, Dark, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
It was actually a wonderful chat. I think we got a lot of good information out, a lot of good conversation, a lot of positive vibes I'm getting. If anyone's interested in joining Pugs, you wanna plug your guild one last time before I let you go?
Yeah.
Plug it.
Pugs is a GOM-based guild. If you guys are interested, please reach out to any of the many people that have posted their account information before. We're happy to recruit anybody of any skill level, as long as you are, our community is very welcoming. We're very inclusive. We do not allow any sort of toxicity. We don't allow any sort of like flaming or BM or shit like that. But we are here to have people. We are here to get people better. Just be, if you want to try to improve, you like World v World, that's what we do. But we are community first as well. So if you like you want to be part of that, then just reach out. We're here.
All right, and with that, I'll let you go, brother. Thanks so much for taking the time. If there's a day to co-host where I think you'd be a good fit, I'll certainly send you a DM. Stay in the Discord, and then if you don't mind, before you leave, I think you did send me a DM, so I have that. You did, so I have that. I'll let you know.
Perfect.
I
Well,
appreciate your time.
Cool. Have a great rest of your night, man.
You too, brother. Have a good night and good luck out there. We'll see you. We'll see what relinks are like tomorrow. Anyone, real quick before you go, anyone you're looking forward to being linked with or not being linked with? Last question.
I want to be T2, T3. That's all. I want to be T2. Whatever makes that happen, because that's where the fights are. That's where the content
I don't know
is.
about T3, bro. I don't even know about T2 sometimes, but honestly, I was playing on my NSP account and fucking Tier 4 had more action than T2 and T3. I think that the jam was T1 and T4, believe it or not.
That's what I saw as well. But yeah, okay. I just want to do with anything that gives me content.
Fair enough.
Anything that I want to be with. More importantly, I want to be in a server where I don't have to be stuck in queues every single time that I log in.
I'm with you there.
Cool.
All right, brother. Have a good night. Thanks again.
Take it easy.